Okay, recording has started. So before we start, just a few mentioning. I think this week and next week will be 2 weeks of lecture, and then the following week, so another 2 weeks away, will be the beginning of the midterm exams. So we have this week and next week. So we'll have plenty of time to cover what we need to cover for the midterm exam. So ethics and social entrepreneurships, hopefully we can pretty much do it in 1.5 lecture. So in general, we will have about kind of half a lecture to do other things as well. So I'll try to mix things up rather than only talk about theories and so on. Maybe I will outline some of the stuff which my company and me doing at Guangzhou Software City. So we're currently looking for intern to do like 1 day a week or something like that to help us with marketing and so on. So if you guys are interested, please let me know. I just need someone to help with marketing literature, such as producing catalogs or brochures or even websites to introduce some of the product services, which me and my group of companies which are working on. So hopefully we will try to keep everything nice and interesting. We'll mix things around. So since we have a lot of time left anyhow. So today I might cover one of these 2 topics, maybe social entrepreneurships. And then I will jump into a different non-midterm examinable kind of topics just to keep things interesting. And maybe I'll introduce some YouTube videos as well, just to introduce some of the innovative technology which me and my group are working on. So we're doing quite a lot of different things, from artificial intelligence to IoT, Internet of Things, to biotech stuff as well, in terms of recycling and keeping things within the carbon cycle rather than polluting into the environment, such as carbon dioxide and methane and so on. So we'll talk more about it later on. So let's get started anyhow. That's just a quick kind of introduction of what today is going to be. So let me just switch to sharing my screen first. So we'll cover at least half of what ethics and social entrepreneurship is. And then we'll spend time to do other things, other exam, non-exam related stuff like YouTube videos and introduction to some of the innovative stuff which we're doing here at Guangzhou Software City, and maybe introduce some of the other technologies and so on as well. Okay, so we'll start with some innovation myths. We kind of talked about innovation previously, innovation and creativity, about your left brain and your right brain, how your right brain tends to, if you're dominated by the right brain, you're more creative, and you find designing things or even thinking about things in terms of a visual kind of things a lot easier compared to the left hemisphere dominated brain. People which are more logical, so they, in general, the left hemisphere kind of people tends to be more technical, logical and so on. They find computer programming a lot easier. They're more like the engineers and the scientists. So left brains are more to do with the hacker, whereas right brain are more to do with the hipsters. They're good at designing things. So innovation is planned and predictable, but it's not necessarily the case, especially to do with innovation. We talk about innovation, there are quite a few different kind of innovation. The invention side of innovation is a lot harder. They're more the right brain kind of innovation. It's a big jump, big step, like the invention of the internet or the invention of the smartphones or those kind of things. So they're more like the Nobel Prize winning kind of innovation, so invention, that is. Whereas the adaptive kind of innovation are more iterative, so it's like an improvement, you know, it's like the iPhone from one version to next, they add an extra widget, it's like an adapt, and then add on an extra functionality and so on. So there are two different kinds of innovation. Maybe the adaptive kind of innovation can be planned and predictable, but when it comes to the invention kind of innovation, these are big jumps, and in general, we don't know what kind of the big invention will come around. Second myth is technical specification should be thoroughly prepared, especially if you're right brain hacker, that kind of people, then these kind of things tend to make sense to you. But some of us are right brain, are more to do with designer or hipsters kind of thing in general, not necessarily technical and so on. So in general, it might be correct for one set of people, but in general, for the right brain or the hipsters in general, it's not necessarily the case. Myth number 3, creativity relies on dream and blue sky idea. This is more to do with right brain kind of comment. Not necessarily the case if you are a left brain and you rely more on the adaptive kind of innovation and so on, which can be planned and predictable. You know, whereas creativity, blue sky ideas, blue sky dreams and so on are more right brain, invention based, that kind of thing. So these two are just the opposite of each other. One is left brain hacker kind of points of view. The other is more of a hipsters or right brain kind of points of view. Yeah, so not necessarily the same. Yeah, it's only half truth, as we call it. Myth number 4: big projects will develop better innovation than small ones. It's not necessarily the case. Some big kind of companies like the Intel, the Google, and the Elon Musk, Tesla, and so on. Yeah, they do decent innovation and so on. But in general, innovation are more famous among startups overall. Yeah? For small companies and so on, in general, they can move much quicker than compared to the big companies like the Tesla or the Microsoft or whichever company you can probably think of in terms of big companies and so on. So it comes from both big companies and small companies, but in general, majority of innovation and so on, in general, comes from small companies or small startups overall. If anything, startups and small companies tend to produce more innovation or even economies and so on compared to the big companies, especially here in Vietnam and pretty much around the world as well. Yeah? Big companies, there's a lot of bureaucracy, red tapes and so on. So in general, things tend to move very slowly compared to the smaller companies or smaller projects, which can move much quicker and can iterate in multitude, number of different directions. So it's not necessarily the same. In general, in the world's experience, small startups and so on are more innovative compared to the big companies. Even though the big companies in general tend to have brand and so on, so they make it well known, good marketing and so on, but it is usually innovation, a lot more innovation from the small companies. Myth number 5, technology is the driving force of innovation success, not necessarily the case. Innovation can be in many different directions. Yeah? So it doesn't have to be technology. Innovation could be through a good actor or singer-songwriter. Innovation could be a different tune or a different stream of artists as well. So it's not all about technology. Yeah? So there are arts involved, the creativity involved to do with innovation as well. Although technology in general tends to be popular as such, because a lot of the big technology companies and so on, they're the driving force of a lot of these marketing and so on, especially the Tesla and the Amazon and so on. In general, they do all these SpaceX and big brand or big kind of marketing compared to other form of innovation as well. So it's not all about technology. Innovation could be in art or even social science or in various different other dimensions as well. It doesn't have to be technology based, although a lot of it is technology based because it's a lot easier to innovate in technology. But there are many other dimensions which you can innovate into. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on to social entrepreneurships and the social entrepreneurship movements. So social entrepreneurship is a new form of entrepreneurship, very similar to intrapreneur in the sense that intrapreneur and entrepreneur are almost the same thing. It's that intrapreneur focus more on starting a startup or a company for another company, for a corporation or parent companies. Whereas social entrepreneurships in general tends to apply to a social problem, and there are many social problems around the world. One of the secret to startups, as I kind of mentioned quite a few times, the secret to startups is to start something, but also to get to have some kind of idea, especially when you are stuck to work on your EBIS assignment. Is to look for problems. Wherever you find problems, there is a potential business there. Because wherever there is a problem, there are somebody who wants to pay you to solve their problem for them. So problems can be various different forms of problems. And one kind of problems is social problems. So it's the same thing in the sense that wherever there is a social problems, there are people who's willing to pay you to solve those problems for them. So entrepreneurship or social entrepreneurship tends to focus on solving social problems itself. So solving social problems traditionally, or private sector entrepreneurships focus on innovation or risk-taking and large-scale transformation to do with social problems. So social entrepreneurship is a process. It's about going out there and find the problems and recognizing the opportunity or the perceived social opportunity to apply your skill sets to solve those problems. Wherever there is a perceived social problems, there are people willing to pay you to solve that problem for them. And by translating or translation of the social opportunity into an enterprise concept. So identification and acquisition of resources to implement the launching of the social enterprise itself to meet the various different social goals needed. So it's not that much different to entrepreneurships. If anything, social entrepreneurship is a subset of entrepreneurships. So entrepreneurships cover all business process or potential businesses as a whole, whereas social entrepreneurship covers businesses which solves a social problem or taking on a social opportunity per se. So social entrepreneurs also is basically a person or a small group of individuals, also known as co-founders, who found and or lead an organization or initiative to engage in a social entrepreneurship or solving some kind of social problem. Sometimes it is also known as public entrepreneurs, or civic entrepreneurs, or social innovators. So in general, to do with or to relate to some kind of social problem. We'll cover what sectors or what industrial sectors and so on are they basically the word social applies to in the moment. So the characters of a social entrepreneur, it's also known as a change agent. In general, there is a slight difference to the normal entrepreneur. Yeah, so in general, entrepreneurs tend to focus more on profitability and so on. It's about making a return from your investment. Don't forget that entrepreneurships and so on, you need to invest your capital. Yeah, so your money in general, you need to have a return from it. With social entrepreneurs, it's not necessarily a return on your capital per se, but also a return on a social value as well. So it's the addition of not only a return from the business itself, but also a social value has been added to the process. So characters of a social entrepreneurs, in general, they adopt a mission to create, as well as sustainable social values beyond their personal value. You know, when we talk about personal values, are pretty much return from their investment, their capital investment, their time or their energy involved. Yeah, here, social entrepreneurs not only invest because of personal value, but also social values as well. So it's social values plus personal values. In general, social entrepreneurs recognition as well as relentless pursuit of opportunity for social value. Very similar to entrepreneurs, but here not only, it should also include personal values as well. Social entrepreneurs can be profitable as well. Yeah, so don't think that it is all to do with social in most cases. Some social entrepreneurs can be very big, successful businesses, as what we will see later on. But there is a personal values as well. Yeah, so it's not all social values which they do things for. They engage in continuous innovation as well as learning, similar to normal entrepreneurs, as well as action beyond the limited resources at hand, very similar to entrepreneurs. But then on top of that, they will have a heightened sense of accountability, especially to do with social values or social related values. So there are three kinds of enterprise or companies in general to do with social social values as such. There's the social obligation, there's the social responsibility, and then there are the social responsiveness. Yeah? The more social value added, it pretty much goes down in the list. So less so with social obligation, more social values are added with the social responsiveness. So the social obligated enterprise, like the word obligate, it just means you own something to society. Yeah? So in general, firms which has a social obligation, in general, simply react to social issues through obedience to the law. So they take the minimum kind of activity. What I mean by the minimum is to the letter of the law. Yeah? Nothing more than the letter of the law. Yeah? If there's law in terms of pollution and so on, they will obey by the law. So these are the social obligation kind of enterprises, and the minimum only to the law itself. Whereas social responsibility kind of enterprises, in general, not only obey and obedience by the law, they will take it a step further. So firms that respond more actively than to the law, to social issues, by accepting not only by obedience by the law, but also accept the responsibility for various programs as well to contribute or to add to values, to social values. And taking it a step further are the social responsiveness kind of enterprises. These firms not only obey by the law when it comes to society, in addition, they will not only accept responsibilities for various programs, they will also are highly proactive and are even willing to be evaluated by public for various different activities. So in addition to programs or even limited to law and so on, they are proactive and willing to be evaluated by the public as well. So it's a different kind of level of social enterprises itself, yeah? And startups is the same thing. If you are a startup and you're only socially obligated, then you obey everything by the law of the country. But if you are a socially responsibility kind of startup, then in addition to obey by law, you take it a little step further and you accept responsibility that you are creating some kind of carbon footprint. And you will contribute to various different programs to help reduce those carbon footprints or pollution or whatever in terms of social values. And if you are a startup which, in addition, are socially responsiveness, you will not only obey by the law and be responsible for your footprints, your carbon footprints, and having various different programs, you will be also highly proactive, as well as willing to have the public to come to your companies to see that you are not doing anything that is bad to the environment or bad to whatever when it comes to social values. We'll talk to various different dimensions in terms of social values in a moment. So actually, we will talk about it now. So the social value can be implemented in a number of different ways. To a lot of companies tend to be social values is to do with the helping the environment, but it doesn't have to be environment itself. It could be energy saving, which kind of relates to the environment to a certain extent, as well as fair business practices, as well as human resources and society, as well as community involvements, as well as safety products and so on. So there are various different ways in which you can implement or in which you can add value to societies. Yeah. Let's just zoom in. Is there a way to zoom in? Very difficult to see. If anything to do with environment, here we're talking about things like pollution control, restoration or protection of the environment, conservation of natural resources, and recycling efforts. So anything to reduce pollutions and help to preserve the environment actually are adding social values through helping the environment, because everyone pretty much live on Earth, and we breathe the same atmosphere as well. So any preservation of the environment, it helps society in the sense that we breathe a cleaner air, or we are living in a less polluted atmosphere, or especially global warming and so on as well to do the environment. And similarly, energy is pretty much the same thing. Don't forget that a lot of the energy on Earth which we use fossil fuels such as coal, gas, and oil and so on, which emit a lot of carbon dioxide, and it affects the environment. So these two, environment and energy, goes hand in hand. So when we talk about companies or enterprise to do energies and so on, to do with social enterprises, here we're talking about conservation of energy. So similar to your assignment in terms of clean tech. With clean tech, you are producing a product which reduces energy usage. So it's about conservation of energy, using less energy. So you use less energy, you pollute less, you produce less carbon dioxide and so on. Yeah, so or efforts to increase energy efficiency of products, which pretty much what clean tech assignments. You run in a clean tech companies, use product to increase the efficiency of heating or cooling of people's houses and so on. That's what you're doing in a sense. Separate to the environment and energy and so on, there are other social enterprises which focus on fair business practices as well. With fair business practices, here we're talking about employment and advancement of women as well as minority in society. So creating more jobs for women, because in a lot of countries, especially with big companies and so on, directors and so on, in general, are more dominated by men compared to women. So in terms of fair business practice, they try to make it fair across the sexes, as well as across minorities as well. So here in Vietnam, we do have a lot of hill tribes, such as the Hmong people and so on, which are also unfairly treated compared to the Vietnamese as such. So it's about minority and women to make business fair, to make sure that companies are hiring a fair amount of minorities as well as women among their workers as well. So not only women and minorities, employment and advancement of the disadvantageous individuals as well. So here we're talking about disabled people or Vietnam veterans, people who have injured during the war, or ex-offender, or former drugs addicts, mentally retarded people, as well as the hardcore unemployed. So it's about fair business practices, try to not only encourage hiring a women minority, but also the disadvantageous individuals as well, we just mentioned. As well as support minority-owned businesses as well. Minority in general tends to be unfairly treated, not just in Vietnam, but all around the world. As such. So there are a lot of businesses try to give more businesses to minority-owned businesses. In that way, they are more fair in terms of business practice. Other social values are human resource as well. So here we're talking about promotion of employee health and safety at construction sites and so on. It's not about profitability or efficiency and so on. It's about the workers' health and safety as well. So companies can add value, social values, by focusing on health and safety, especially in construction businesses, as well as other businesses which contain dangerous chemical or dangerous machineries and so on. So is about focusing on health and safety, as well as employee training, as well as development in health and safety, and remedial education programs for the disadvantageous employees as well, especially disabled and so on, providing disabled access to the company's machinery or factories or place of work and so on. As well as alcohol and drug counseling programs for employees. In Vietnam, especially a lot of the industrial zones and so on around Vietnam tends to hire a lot of people from the countryside and so on. So once people from outside of the cities come to the cities and industrial zones, there can be a lot of problems occur, especially drugs and alcohol and so on. So nowadays, a lot of the industrial zones and so on also focus on rehabilitating the alcoholics and the drug addicts and so on as well through counseling programs, as well as career counseling, especially for minorities and women and so on. But when you include women in the workforce itself, there's also children involved as well. So providing childcare facilities for working mothers or working parents as well. And in addition, implementing employee physical fitness as well as stress management programs. But anything this is to do with health and safety as well. It's almost the same thing. Here it's mental health, whereas up here is physical health. Separate to human resource, there's also community-based kind of social values. When we talk about community involvement, here we're talking about donation of cash, product or service from the company, or the employees' time to help out among the communities, like cleaning the streets, yeah, or helping the orphans and disadvantaged people by teaching them or employees spend time cooking for them or provide food for them, those kind of things. Especially in Vietnam, there's a lot of these natural disasters which tends to happen in center of Vietnam, especially during the typhoon period. There's a lot of flooding, there's a lot of destructions and so on. So employees can be sent to these places to donate their time as well as their energy to help with the community as such. As well as sponsoring of public health projects and also support education and the arts, especially in Vietnam with a lot of these cultural Vietnamese art, especially from the countryside and so on. It's helping out in terms of preserving a lot of these minority arts or historical arts and so on, as well as supporting the community in terms of recreational programs to help train kids and so on, to keep them proactive and so on, as well as cooperating in the environment in the community projects, such as recycling centers, as well as disaster assistance, especially in central Vietnam, and also urban renewal, like removing graffiti or cleaning the streets and so on to keep the cities and so on nice and clean, and helping out the community. In addition to community involvement, when it comes to social values, there are enterprises which can focus on products. Yeah? So you can also add values or social values to products as well. So here we're talking about enhancement of safety in products, whether it's environmentally friendly products or recyclable products. You know, with these nowadays, we tend to focus on less so on one-use containers and more so in terms of glass containers or waters and so on, so that we don't pollute more plastic bottles into the environment. So producing products and so on to help with not just on the environment, but in terms of safety as well, containing more healthy, especially food and so on, less heavy metal or less poisonous or toxic kind of food and products and so on into the community, as well as sponsorships of products and safety educational programs and reduction of pollution potential of products, as well as improvement of nutritional values among food, as well as safety when it comes to food, as well as improving packaging and labeling, telling people the content of food, such as calories and fat and so on. So it allows people to have a a healthy kind of diet by knowing what kind of nutritional values various different food has. So social values can be added to at least one of these various different environments. But don't get me wrong, when we talk about social enterprises and so on, it's not all to do with adding social values as well. A lot of this business can be highly, highly profitable. I mean, with Elon Musk and solar cities and so on, a lot of their solar power, yes, it's renewable energies and so on, but it is highly profitable kind of businesses as well. So don't get me wrong, when it comes to social enterprises, in general, some social enterprises can be $1 billion or can be hugely profitable as well. So that's why when we talk about social enterprises and so on, it's not just social values. Yeah, a lot of business also add on personal values. And in general, social enterprise have both both profit from both sources, not only personal values, but also can be also profitable from a social value points of view as well, in addition. So let me just change this one moment. We can cover this already. Yeah, we talked about social obligated enterprises or social responsibility enterprises or social responsiveness. Yeah, it basically takes a step up further to add more social values. So here we just summarizing things into a table. Yeah, it's just this particular slide here, slide number 42, being summarized into a table form. With social obligated enterprises, in general, they tend to maintain a low public profile. So basically, these are the companies which obey social values by the letter of the law. Yeah, they don't do anything on top. Yeah, whatever the law restrictions in terms of pollution or fair practices when it comes to disadvantageous employees and so on, they will do the minimum. Yeah, so at least obey by the law. Maintain low public profile, but if attacked, they will use PR, public relation, to protect themselves, to upgrade their public image. They will deny any deficiency, blame the public satisfaction on ignorance or failure to understand corporate functions. To them, they're not breaking anything because they obey everything by the law. So disclose information only where legally required. Compare that to the social responsibility, which will take a step up in terms of providing social values. These companies will accept responsibility for solving the current problems. They will admit to deficiency. They will not protect themselves and so on, and use PR, public relation. In former practices, an attempt to persuade the public that its current practice meets social norms, as well as attitude and critics and facilitatory and freer information disclosure compared to the social obligation kind of enterprises. And even a step even further, and here in terms of proactiveness and so on, are the social responsiveness kind of enterprises. These are companies or enterprises who are willing to discuss activities with the public, as well as make information more freely available. They proactively make it available to the public, as well as accept formal and informal input from the outside to help and improve their practices and so on, as well as add to their decision making. And not only that, they are willing to be publicly evaluated for various different activities to do with their business practices. And in general, it's not only social values and so on. In terms of philanthropy, it's going to be different contribution as well. So with the social obligated in general, they will contribute only when directly benefits to them or when it is part of the law. They will view contribution as a responsibility of their individual employees, not the enterprise itself. Next stage up are the social responsibility. In general, these will be better compared to the social obligation. They will contribute to non-controversial as well as established causes, as well as match employee contributions. So whatever employee will contribute, the enterprise will match and contribute the same amount in addition to the employee's contribution. One step further are the social responsiveness. In general, these are the enterprise, the startups. They will have activities not only stage 1 and stage 2, in other words, the social obligation and the social responsiveness. They will take it a step further, yeah, and be proactive as well. So plus support and contribution to new, as well as controversial groups who needs it seems or see as unfulfilled, as well as increasingly important as well. So they will take it a little step further compared to the other two. Okay, that is social entrepreneurships. I think the next, we'll cover a little bit more until we reach ethics, and then we'll take a break at ethics. Yeah, so let's continue with environment. So in terms of enterprises who wants to add value to social values to the environment and so on, you can make the startup to be environmentally aware. So these are the eco vision. Basically, their leadership style that encourage not only open but also flexible structure that encompass the employees as well. The organization as well as the environment with attention to evolving social values and social demand. Yeah, so things change, yeah, environment change and so on. Social norm will also change. Not everything are believed to be eco-friendly. Eventually it will turn out to be non-eco-friendly. For example, I mean, most of you probably think that motorbike and cars and streets and so on are highly polluted, producing or burning all those fossil fuel, producing a lot of carbon dioxide, as well as fine particle pollution as well. People breathing in these dust produced by cars and motorbikes and so on are harmful to their lungs and so on as well. But not so long ago, before motor vehicles exist, horse and cart existed. Yeah. If anything, these were high pollution from the manure from horses, as well as animal or burden and so on, polluting on streets and so on, create more disease, more pollution. If anything, cars and motorbike burning fossil fuel reduce this amount of pollution. So 100 years ago, when we were more reliant on horses and bulls to drawn or to have transport as such, these animal obese of burden created more pollution. Cars and motorbikes were invented or innovated to reduce pollution in the first place. So it depends. What I'm trying to say is that maybe you see cars and motorbike are polluting kind of industries and so on, but 50 to 100 years ago, it was helping to reduce pollution as such. So even the replacement, even the electric vehicles, electric cars might not be today, or to you today, it might mean that it's more healthier, less pollutions and so on, but it could be in 100 years time, your grandkids and so on will look down on electric vehicles. Yeah, don't forget electric vehicles still use electricity. Electricity can be produced from coal and oil and so on. So even electric vehicles can be pollution as well. But it depends on where you are in this innovative kind of cycle as such. You know, for us, we might see cars and motorbike pollution, but 100 years ago that was not the case. If anything, cars and motorbike was reducing pollution in the environment. And our grandkids will see something similar in 100 years. There'll be innovation which even more environmentally friendly transport than even the electric cars and electric vehicles. That's what we see now. And don't forget that electric cars and electric vehicles not only use electricity, which can be which can come from fossil fuel, but it's the material which we use to build these electric cars as well. Yeah? They could be, especially when you have to recycle these cars, it can create a lot of pollution issues later on, especially the batteries. A lot of the batteries can be toxic as well. So for us, be careful. You know, it depends on the current situation when it comes to environment. So environmentally awareness, yeah, main step to have a strategy within startups as well as enterprise. You need to have these key steps to help it to have some kind of environmental strategy. So eliminating the concept of waste is about restoring accountability, like your carbon footprints. And as you know, these sort of like one-use containers, bottled waters and so on, plastic bottled waters and so on, and switching to glass and so on. So you can recycle the containers and so on, as well as making price reflect costs as well. So it's not about forcing people to do one thing or not, but make it accountable. You know, whatever they do, whatever they decide, if it can be reflected in price somehow to make it more expensive if they want to pollute. The actual price and so on can be redirected into other environmental safety or environmental cleaning or safetiness and so on. So it's the same as accountability. Accountability is making you responsible from the inside, whereas crisis will fine you if you pollute and so on. So both of them pretty much the same or similar. It's just two ways to make people accountable for what they do when it comes to pollution. As well as promoting diversity and making conservation profitable, especially with recycling. A lot of these recycling can be highly profitable. It's not just clean energy, renewable energy, and so on. By recycling plastic or paper and so on, it's a big industry on its own as well. As well as insisting on accountability, not only of your employees or the enterprise itself, but of the whole country, of nations as well. Okay, so that's the end of the social enterprises. We only got one more section left, and that is ethics. Maybe we'll leave it for another for next week, and we'll switch to something a little bit more interesting than what is here. So before we do that, we'll take a 15 minutes break. Yeah, so currently it is 2:11. We will come back at 2:25 and restart. And we'll switch to something else rather than talk about ethics now. We leave it for next week, and we'll cover maybe some YouTube videos or something, or some kind of other media as well. So let's take a 15-minute break. Okay, let's restart. Before we start, can I check? Can you hear me? Somebody please respond. Okay, I can see a yes. I presume that you can hear me. Okay, so before the break, we cover social entrepreneurships. There'll be a few questions on social entrepreneurships within the midterm exam. And we will finish all the ethics next week. Yeah. So there'll be question on ethics as well. So everything up to ethics will be covered in the midterm exams. Yeah. So outside of those things, we will not. It will be not examinable. So this second part of the lecture, the material which we will cover, will not be examinable. So let me just quickly introduce you to what me and my companies and so on do here at Wang Chung Software City. So we'll give a brief description of some of the innovation which we are working on, and then we'll talk about other things. Yeah, we'll skip ahead and we'll cover about other topics, yeah, which is not examinable and so on, just to keep things interesting and so on. Okay, so my company is, one of the main companies is EduNet. I have quite a few different companies. Let me just share you my screen. Have I shared you my screen already? Yes, I have. So if you're interested, welcome to go to the website. There are quite a few different companies which I'm working on. EduNet is one of the main companies. It does quite a lot of different things, from artificial intelligence to IoT. The web page has been outdated, so hence I need an intern to help me update the website to the new information, new products, and new services which my companies are working on. Separate to EduNet, I have other companies focusing on biotech, such as LavaTech, which uses black soldier fly to recycle organic waste. Yeah, so there's a lot of food industry create a lot of waste, especially agricultural waste. So what these flies does is it actually eats these organic waste. It even eats plastic, so you can recycle some plastic as well. And it keeps the waste in the food cycle, so it never leaves the food cycle to turn into carbon dioxide or methane and so on. So the organic waste enter these flies and become insect proteins, and the insect proteins are fed to fish and animals such as chicken and pigs and so on. So the food never leaves the carbon cycle or food cycle as such. It stays within the organic waste itself. So it does not contribute to global warming or carbon dioxide or methane and so on. There are a few other companies, but these are the two main companies. You're welcome to go to my YouTube channels. There's quite a few interesting videos here. Some of the projects which we are working on, some of the innovative projects we're working on, is LavaTech. Let's have a look at LavaTech. Let me just reduce the volume. It's just only music, so you don't need to hear. I don't think there's any voice anymore. So you see these larvae belongs to the flies itself. It can consume this fish in a very short period of time. So this is 2 hours, and you can see this fish is already disappeared. But it can eat any organic material. Yeah, so if you have organic waste from food waste, throw it into this this bucket. It will disappear. It will disappear within just a couple of hours. This is a cooked fish, so it's a lot more softer, and hence the worms eat most of the fish quite quickly. This is a raw fish, so it takes a little bit longer times. The worm has teeth as well, but in general, because the raw fish is a little bit more tougher, it takes a longer period of time. So 7 hours, the fish has already disappeared. So you see here in this box, the worms, there's about the same amount of worms as the 2 fish itself. So the worms can eat about 2 to 3 times its mass. Yeah, so by having the same weight of worms in this box, the black soldier fly worms, that is, it can consume its same amount of weight in organic material in very short period of time. So you see it's only about 8 hours, most of the organic waste in this box has already disappeared. 10 hours. 12 hours. So the surprising thing is that the waste, the organic waste, doesn't have time to become smelly as well. So if anything, the worms like to eat the part of the organic waste which is rotten already. So the rotten bit is soft, so it gets eaten first. So it doesn't have time to become smelly. So after 1 hour, if you stick your head into the box itself, you probably won't smell the rotten fish, because the worms like eating the rotten part first. Once the rotten part is completed or eaten up, then it will eat other parts of the fish itself. So it's process the fish or organic waste very quickly. So when you first put the organic waste in, that's when it becomes smelly. Yeah, but after about an hour, all the smell will pretty much disappear, because the worms already eaten all the rotten parts of the organic waste. So that's Lab Attack, focusing more about recycling organic waste, especially from food manufacturing factories that they do produce a lot of waste. And we recycle these wastes into insect proteins. Insect proteins that use a lot less resource. You see here with the fish and so on, there's no water added to this. So it doesn't use extra water or resources to do water itself. You just throw in the organic waste, and then it just churns through the organic waste itself. So hardly use any water at all. Other things which we do is that we do artificial intelligence, such as computer vision. So we implement this CC camera artificial intelligence at Guangzhou Software City. Let me just restart it. I think it's restarted midway. So it manages the CC camera around industrial zones. But not only it's manage all the CC cameras, it actually detects not only behavior, but if people driving the wrong side of the street, or speeding, or doing anti-social behavior, it will detect and warn people. So in here, it detects people, bicycle, cars, motorbikes, and so on. As different objects or vehicles or people going through the entrance, it will also detect license plate as well as behavior. You will see later on. And it uses very minimal kind of processing power. It doesn't need special hardware, anything like that. We also do other things as well. We not only innovate ourselves with all these AIs and so on, but we also, let me see if I can find it. Let's just do a refresh. We also collaborate with other companies, and recently we collaborated with a Korean companies which does these AI for smart city as well. So let's play from one of our partners. Let's restart this. So this is called One More Security or One More Eye. It can be used to track people, lost kids at shopping malls or plaza. So you have a photo of the kids. By using the photo itself, we can search within the shopping mall or at the various different shopping plaza and so on, to see where have they wandered themselves to. So we use this to track lost kids or even thieves within the shopping mall. Not only people, we also track vehicles as well, such as cars and motorbikes and so on. So here we're doing facial recognition, and we can track the individual walking around from CC cameras to other CC cameras. So we can track people around the city. Mainly for security issues and so on, for terrorism and protections and so on. So here for vehicles, so not only cars, but license plate, and the make and the model of the vehicle as well. So you can search for color cars or make a model or license plate. So as some of you know, Ho Chi Minh City is planning to convert the town into a smart city. So we're pitching with Ho Chi Minh City to implement all this artificial intelligence, CC cameras, tracking, and so on within the Two Duck Smart City area. So separate to smart city, we do some social entrepreneurships as well. So startup to monitor environment and so on as well. So let me explain one of this. It's in Vietnamese, so I'll stick on subtitle captions as well. One moment. Caption. Pause. To translate English. Okay, play. It's me setting up the environmental station to trace and track salinity in the Mekong Delta. So we're doing a lot of these environmental monitor station, because the Mekong Delta is Vietnam's food production area itself. A huge amount of food come out of the Mekong Delta. But during the dry season, there is a shortage of water in the Mekong Delta, especially when seawater flows up the river itself. So the river water becomes salty, and you cannot irrigate agriculture with salty water. You can kill a lot of plants. So Mekong Delta are suffering from these saltwater influx up the river itself, and we're creating these environmental stations to track and trace the movement of the saltwater itself, and hence the people in the Mekong Delta can follow these saltwater warnings and so on their mobile apps and so on. So in addition to these, we do COVID-related stuff as well to keep track of social distancing and so on. So here's just an app, application which we apply to track the social distancing and so on. So by using CC cameras, we can remap or transform CC cameras into a bird eye view. And once we have a bird eye view, we can track how far people or individuals are away from each other. So these are more than 2 meters, so they are green. So green are safe, yellow is risky, and red is that they're within 2 meters of each other. So we use artificial intelligence to detect the distance between individuals. So this can be used within restaurant or supermarket to make sure people are not too close to each other and so on. So it warns people from being within 2 meters of each other in a visual way. Since now Saigon and so on, we have to live with COVID and so on. We need all these new innovation or apps or these kind of AI to help us live with COVID-19. So artificial intelligence is used to detect. I think this van contains lots of people. That's why it's all flashing red. These people are too close to each other. But it can be done not on streets, but in restaurant or supermarket or shopping malls and so on. Yep. In addition to tracking people with license plates or behavior and so on, it can track and trace whether people wearing safety clothes or doing things which is to help with health and safety as well. So let's look at health and safety application of this. Health and safety, let me find out where it is. So in construction areas, yeah, especially if you want to implement some form of health and safety automation. Let me just find that. We can use artificial intelligence to make sure people are wearing safety material, PPE and so on, whether they're wearing their mask or safety hat or safety clothing as well. Very useful, especially in construction buildings. We can use this artificial intelligence for other applications as well, such as taking inventory quicker. So rather than go around the supermarket counting products on the shelves, we can do this automatically and much quicker as well. Let's see. We just use a camera, just walking around the supermarket, we can know how much or what is on the shelves. It can be used to detect thefts as well, if things are missing on the shelves. So we're using a lot of these new technology from artificial intelligence to biotech, to Internet of Things, to apply it to solve different problems around the city, whether to help with the environment or help with recycling, especially with the lava tech, as well as other products or problems which people tend to encounter, such as thefts or terrorisms or social distancing or track and trace, especially if someone's is F1, how do you track F2 and F3 and so on. So by using these security cameras, we can track and trace people as well in addition. Let's see if there's any other technology which I can talk about. We do other things as well. We can count things quickly, such as inventory is one way of counting products on the shelves. But we can count how many mango on the tree, or how many, or the assets, how much assets you have in the farm, by counting how many oranges or mangoes. So here, footage going through a tree, and is counting how many mangoes are there on this particular tree itself. Zoom in. So you can see these mangoes, it detects them and it counts them. So the numbers represents how many, so it's about 125 mangoes already. So you have drones flying around a field, say an apple orchard or a orange orchard, or even around a lake, and you can count how many fish in the lake or how many fruit are there on a tree. I can do it much quicker as well. So it's very similar to the inventory, what you saw earlier, but here you can just take footage as the camera moves through the orchard or fields or through lakes to count how much assets you have in the field. And it can be done much quicker and more accurate compared to a human walking around and detecting how many mango are there on a tree. We do hyperspectral farming as well, by using drone to detect whether crops needs to be watered or whether there are infection within crops. So here in Kuching, we're looking at these rice paddy fields and mapping these rice paddy fields into using hyperspectral mapping. It detects healthy crops, so pink means healthy. If things are like grey, this means unhealthy. There's nothing in the field at the moment, so it's all grey. Wherever is brightest pink, it means that plants there are healthy. So we can detect if fields needs to be fertilized or needs to be watered, and we can deal with solve problems like spraying insecticide only the area which is needed rather than spray the whole field. So this is more of a precise or precision farming. So for example here, you see, let me just pause. See, these are healthy crops or healthy plants. But this black area, it means it's unhealthy. So maybe you can fly a drone around and spray pesticide or fertilizer in the area where it is needed. You don't spray the whole field and you waste all that pesticide as well as fertilizers. You only need to manage where crops needs to be managed. So this is called precision farming, where you farm or where you solve problems where there are problems and not spray the whole field. There's us standing in the corner filming, controlling our drone. So we can map fields into Google Maps. So we can pretty much, similar to satellite photos, we can see where crops needs to be managed. So here we can detect different crops in different parts of the fields. So by drone around, using computer vision, we can detect different crops or different plants around, and we can map the whole area from drone footages. What else? We do robotics as well. And smart farms, these are smart farms. This is another joint venture with another Korean company. We're using artificial intelligence to manage the environment for these plants, to optimize the perfect environment for the plant to grow as fast as possible. In fact, for those who are interested, we're trying to implement these technology for growing Ngọc Linh ginseng in central Vietnam. So let's have a look. EBU net gold farm ginseng. So this is in Vietnam province. We're working, try to set up a smart farm or using smart farm technology to produce seedlings for Ngọc Linh ginseng. There's me. There's my Korean panel farm partner, smart farm partner. And I think this person here is the vice chairman of Vietnam province. There's a few other officials as well from Vietnam province around. Any other technology? There's a lot more technology we're working on as well. I haven't really made it available to the public yet, so a lot of it we don't talk about. Well, I'm not supposed to talk about yet. But these are some of the more mature of the technology which we are developing at Quang Trung Software City. Our office, let's have a look at our office. So this is live footage. This is, let's just refresh. Connection loss for some reason. In a short while, it might restart soon. Stop, refresh. These just basically following the various different sensors which we have. There is our office at Quang Trung City. It's me sitting pretty much here. This is live picture. Some engineers working on the IoT stuff. These are weather station for environmental sensors. These are communication equipment to send IoT data back to the control center. Let's see if I can refresh it now. Yep, yeah, can. So this is the map of Quang Trung Software City in District 12. So this is my office. I'm sitting here at the moment. So click on this camera, we should be able to see CC camera, we should see the office here. So this is my office in Quang Trung Software City. It's an R&D lab in a corner of the Quang Trung Software City. We're currently working on quite a number of different projects with a number of different partners. We have a smart farm here at Software City as well. The smart farm is over here, a big greenhouse or smart farm. It's not really a glass greenhouse. This is a netting house. We grow various different crops there and control different crops there. Okay, I think that's good enough in terms of introduction of what we do here. And we're looking for interns to help us to produce, to add a lot more of these information onto the website. The website is a bit outdated at the moment. And for those who are interested, at least to see what it feels like to work in a startup or a high-tech startup kind of company environment, if you are interested, you can come and work here 1 or 2 days a week and help us to add more information with brochures and catalogs and so on to document not only technology which we're working on, but help us improve our websites and our marketing materials as well. So for those who are interested, please email me. I can give you more details as time goes by. Okay, so that's a brief interview, not interview, but descriptions of a startup or technology startup as such, working here in Vietnam itself. For those who are interested in experiencing it, feel free to apply. Let's move on anyhow. It's 10 past 3. Let's move on to, oops, let's close this. Move on to business model. So go to the course website. Lecture number, let's see, lecture number 7. We'll jump to business model, okay? And we'll go through a few slides on business model. So these are modern business model, or modern way, which I tend to use to start startups as well. There are reasons why, and maybe you can understand why when you go through a lot of these models. Yeah, we'll cover these models. Yeah. This part of the lecture is not examinable. Okay, so this slides lecture will not be in your midterm exam. We'll cover the so-called Fantastic Five. Yeah, so these are the business strategy, the modern business strategy. Let's write the word modern in as well, in caps as well, because it's important that these are the latest way of thinking when it comes to starting a business. There are 5 business models which a lot of people are looking into in terms of starting a business, and there are rationale why these are very, very popular. The 5 business models which we'll cover, or sometimes known as the Fantastic Five, is the lean style. There's a book on it by Edward Wright. There's the Blue Ocean Strategy by Rene Moberg and Chan Kim. There's the Disruptive Innovation by Clayton Christensen. There's Business Model Canvas. Most of you probably heard of the Business Model Canvas by Alexander Ostenwald and Yves Perneux. And lastly, the last of the Fantastic Five is the Design Thinking by Andre Blanhos. By looking at Google Trend, you can see how each one of these different modern business model actually becoming or trending, become more and more popular. The most popular is the design thinking. That's this purple line here. In recent years, it has been became very, very popular, and you will see why it becomes popular. We'll go through each one of these business model and talk about the pros and cons each of these business model and how you apply each one of these modern business model to your startups or your e-biz hub, if you prefer. After the design thinking is the red line, which is the business model canvas, followed by lean startup by Edward Wright, that's this blue line. And less so popular are the Blue Ocean Strategy, which is this green line. Everything is trending downward. It was very popular in the early 2000s, but more recently it has trended downward more so. And lastly, disruptive innovation. It has been sort of like a slow trend and becoming more and more popular, but not as popular as the top 3. Which is design thinking, business model canvas, and also the lean startup. Don't think that all these business models will apply to you. Yeah, there are pros and cons. Each one has its pros and its cons as well. So when it comes to innovation and so on, there is no one size fit all. There's no one book which apply to your startup or your e-business assignment itself. So rather look for what is best or what is most popular tools and so on, or what's most trending and so on. You need to look for what is the right tool for you. So we'll cover the five fantastic, the so-called fantastic five. You can pick from there which one apply to you the best, and you can apply it to your e-biz hub or even to your life as such. So the first of the fantastic five is the lean startup. Yeah, lean startup basically borrowed the idea from modern manufacturing. You know, the like Toyota's way of manufacturing things, and from manufacturing, so they have to improve on their efficiency. So if it works for manufacture, why should it work for startups as well? So these startup borrow the ideas from manufacturing. It's not about starting a startup and trying to figure out how to make the startup successful. It's about a game of numbers. So in contrast to the traditional way or traditional method in terms of starting the business, lean startup tends to focus more on an iterative evolution. So it borrows the idea from what you experienced in your clean tech assignment. It's not about trying the simulation once. If you try a simulation in clean startup, clean tech once, you will fail, you'll go bankrupt. Anything which you do, any game which you play, first few times, you're not going to play too well. But the more time you play, the better you will improve. And it's about this iterative evolution. First attempt, you produce some kind of minimum viable product. It just means the cheapest product which you can get it to the market. Once you get it to the market, you will get feedback from the market. Then you iterate it to version 2, and version 3, and version 4. Once you reach version 10 or version 20, it's a bit like your clean tech assignment. Your 20th iteration or your 20th simulation will be better than your first time you play a clean tech assignment. So it's about this iterative evolution of the products, the business, the marketing plan, and so on as a whole. You iterate everything at the same time. So pretty much very similar to what you do in your clean tech assignment. The more time you play at your clean tech assignment, the better you get at the game. So the method, try to optimize this iterative process. You can, in real world, it's the same thing. You can play the game many times until you run out of money. So if you know you have limited amount of resources in terms of capital, you try to eliminate wasteful practices and churning out these minimum viable products. Yeah, the less wasteful you are, the more minimum viable product you are, the more iteration you can afford. Yeah, so it's about eliminating wasteful practices and increasing value producing practices and increase this number of iteration itself. So during the whole product cycle phase, in general, you require less resources, but you have more iteration, you have more chances at playing the game until you become better and better. And as you evolve or iterate the evolution, the product will get better and better as the version increases. So lean startup, the idea behind lean startup is that you know you're going to fail. You know your first product or your second or your fifth products, yeah, it's not going to be perfect. Yeah, but the more you improve on these things, the more closer to perfection your product or your service is going to get. So it's about planning failure into your business plan as well. That you're going to fail in the first few attempts, like clean tech assignment, your first few simulation, you're going to fail. But you learn from your mistake. Yeah, it's about keeping failure as quickly as possible or as cheaply as possible, so you can play the game as many times as possible. And each time you play the game, your product or your service is going to improve and will approach perfection. So it's about producing a minimum viable product, exposing it to early version to your consumers or your target users, and collecting lots and lots of data and information. So very similar to your clean tech assignment, first few simulation which you do, you collect a lot of these data, you learn from your mistake, and then the next iteration of your clean tech assignment, or your simulation, you will make those right decisions to make your iteration or you make your simulation better and better. So by getting feedback or customer feedback or user feedback during the whole product development itself is integral to what the lean startup is all about. So the whole process is an iterative process. First, you get some idea, you build a minimum viable product, you expose it to the market, you measure the data and so on, you learn from your mistake, you build version 2. And you go round and round until you reach version 10, version 20. So it's very similar to your clean tech assignment. The more simulation you try, the better you get at playing the game. In the real world, this is what real entrepreneur in general tends to experience anyhow, from the Mark Zuckerberg to Elon Musk. For the company which they succeed on, they have failed multiple companies before that. They learn from their mistakes. It's like their minimum viable product. The first few companies which they started off with, they fail, they learn from the mistake, they iterate, they improve, and after a few iterations, they hit on to something which became a success, like Tesla with Elon Musk, or Facebook with Mark Zuckerberg and so on. So in general, a lot of the successful entrepreneur would have gone through a similar process. For them, it's not about minimizing. For lean startup, if anything, it has this extra step, producing something which is minimum viable, so you can put into the market as cheaply as possible, so you can learn from your mistake. So it's about minimizing the each iteration so that you can play the game more than once. So that's the pros and the advantages of the lean startup. The second of the Fantastic Five is the blue ocean strategy. Let me just check the time. We'll have time to cover blue ocean strategy, and then we might cover the other 3 of the Fantastic 5 next week or so. So with blue ocean, it has a different spin. In general, Vietnam and so on, a lot of students in the class and a lot of the eBiz Hub assignment, you will find that a lot of people tend to think about starting a business in a red ocean where there are plenty of competition. So you have ideas in terms of starting something like a restaurant or a cafe in Vietnam. Those are highly competitive market. There are cafes almost in every street in Vietnam, and in most streets there are more than one cafe anyway. Similarly, restaurant as well. So in general, by competing with each other in this so-called red ocean, full of blood and so on, and people competing for pennies and so on, your chance of success is going to be very low. So in general, with the blue ocean, build a different sector or a different products in such that you are not competing with anyone else. So this fish, instead of competing and fighting with other fishes in this pool, you can always find a totally different marketplace, a blue ocean as such, where you can jump into and operate in, where you have no competition at all. And that's what blue ocean is all about. Why compete in a red ocean when you could compete or not compete in the blue ocean? So that's what Chan Kim and Rene Moberg has developed. Instead of competing head-on, results in nothing but a bloody red ocean of rivals and competitors and so on. If you just sit back and have a think, yeah, there are ways in which there's a strategy, and that's what blue ocean strategy is all about. There are ways in which you can structure your business, such as when success increasingly become from creating a blue ocean of the business, of untapped new market space, ripe for growth, and no one else is competing in it. So it's like this fish jumping into this blue pool as such. So instead of operating in a red ocean where competition occur in existing market, you operate in a blue ocean where you create a competition-free market space itself, and that is also possible, and we'll go through the systematic method to do that. In red ocean, it's all about beating the competitors is absolutely necessary. So it's like Schumpeterian's definition of entrepreneurship. It's about creative destruction. You are destroying somebody, you're destroying your competitors, or your competitors are destroying you. Whereas in the blue ocean, competition becomes irrelevant. You're the only player in that particular market itself. Similarly, in the red ocean, you are attending existing demand. You are only supplying to what the market wants to sell, whereas you could produce a product or a service where there are no substitution between values and costs anymore. You are producing a new sector and so on, which can be possible. Similarly, in the red ocean, value and costs, there is a trade-off. So you either operate like China, low value or low quality, low cost, or like US or Japan, high value, high quality, but also it means high cost. Blue ocean strategy, there is a pretty much an area in between. So it's similar to South Korea, for example. In South Korea, a lot of cosmetics, products and so on, it's not necessarily low value, low cost, or high value, high cost. It's somewhere in between. It's the right value and the right cost. There is a trade-off between the right value and the right cost itself. And hence, South Korea is not a China, or it is not a America where the product is too expensive. It's not Chinese cosmetic, but it is not European or American cosmetic either. It's Korean, South Korean cosmetic. The price is in between these two red ocean itself as well. So in blue ocean, it's about creating and capturing new demand and success through these new niches where there are no substitution. In red oceans, it's companies' activities are aligned, choosing some kind of differentiation between cost and value strategy, low cost, low value, or high cost, high value, like European up here, China down here, and then you have something like Vietnam or South Korea somewhere in the middle where the price is not too high, but the quality and the value are not too high as well. There's no one competing in this particular niche itself. Majority of people either compete on value, low value, low cost, or high value, high cost itself. So in blue ocean, companies' activities are aligned, choosing both the, differentiation and also low cost strategy as well. So it's somewhere in the middle. This niche which not many people operate in. You know, in general, any business, you can always design it that way. So let's look at an example of a blue ocean strategy. So if you are gamers, famous example of blue ocean strategy is the Xbox, PlayStation, and Nintendo Wii competition. So let's have a look. Blue ocean and Nintendo. In a blue ocean strategy, that is, you're going to always differentiate your product compared to the rest of the market. Yeah? So the rest of the market, the red oceans, is either low cost, low value, or high cost, high value. So what happened here is Nintendo Wii chose a blue ocean strategy. They saw on the marketplace itself, there are the Xbox One, or the Sony PlayStation or smartphones. And each one of these devices, they divided different dimension of scoring. So things like game availability, game quality, voice control, motion control, other application, price of console, or price of game. You can do this if you want to apply to, say, cafe as well. So you can have cafe in terms of ambience, in terms of themes, in terms of quality of coffee, in terms of price, and so on. You can divide all businesses into a different number of dimensions. And each of these dimensions, you can give some realistic score for these. Yeah? So for example, game availability. So smartphones games, yeah, is very highly available because it's on Play Store or Apple's App Store. Similarly, Xbox as well, availability tends to be a lot higher compared to Nintendo games, for example. In terms of quality, same thing. So you can always, every single businesses or every single product or every single services in general, you can score them on different dimensions. And what blue ocean strategy allow you to do is notice where you where there is a red ocean, where you should not compete, where you can compete. So Nintendo is applying the blue ocean strategy. They see that it's not about availability, because if you compete in availability, you're going to go head on head in a red ocean with smartphone games or even with the Xbox. Their availability is very easy. They can download games and so on, or they can buy them from a shopping mall or supermarket even. Similarly, quality. In terms of smartphones, the quality are very low, so there's no need to compete in this low quality, low value red ocean, or even a high quality, high value kind of red ocean. So Nintendo chose somewhere in the middle. So they don't aim for low quality, low value, or high quality, high cost as well overall. And similarly, you can do the same for each of these dimensions. And hence, what Nintendo Wii became a product which is unique in its own. It's not about high quality, high value, or low quality, low value, or about high availability. It's about be able to push where you want to be strong and concede where you're going to lose anyway. So in that way, you are not competing in a red ocean. So by realizing that all these different dimensions, where are the red competitions going to be, the red oceans going to be, you can plot your way through all the red ocean and pretty much be in a blue ocean yourself, and your business, or that's what Nintendo Wii became, and that's why it became so successful when it competed against the Xbox One or smartphones or even the PlayStation. Back then it was the PlayStation 3. When it was competing, it created itself a new marketplace. It created a blue ocean for its own product, and that's why the Nintendo Wii became so successful. Although the market has changed, now we have PlayStation 5 and a lot more alternatives when it comes to smartphone games, and the Xbox has gone away from the Xbox One into more modern products itself. Back when Nintendo Wii were operating, it was the most successful gaming console back in its days. And that's what Blue Ocean strategy is all about. You find wherever there are competition, competing in the red ocean, you figure out how to be able to move away from these competition, and you design a product or a service which is in a whole niche of its own, in a whole new ocean of its own, or blue ocean of its own. And that's what the blue ocean is all about. In doing so, you create your own blue ocean, and hence you're not competing with anyone else. Whereas the smartphone games and the Xbox are basically competing in their various different red ocean itself. And that's what the pros, the positive about blue ocean strategies is all about. Anyway, I think we ran out of time. We'll cover the other 3 of the Fantastic 5 next week if we have time. But definitely we'll have to finish all the business ethics for the midterm exams. So don't forget, midterm exams will be in 2 weeks' time. Yeah? So we have another week of lecture, and then after that, it will be midterm exam. Any questions so far? Anyone? Before we finish today. Question, anyone? On midterm exams, on assignments, on internship position at my company, just to help with the producing marketing material? No question?
Yes.
Go ahead.
When are the deadlines of all assignments, sir? The individual clean test and group project?
All assignment will be, deadline will be 2 weeks after the last week of semester.
I beg your pardon?
2 weeks after the last week of semester.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So that's another maybe 7 or 8 weeks to go. Yeah. So last week of semester, I think maybe week 12, week 13. I don't know which week it is now. And then you add on another 2 weeks, and that's the deadline for the assignments. All 3 of them: the individual assignment, the clean tech assignment, and the e-business assignment. There is another deadline, and that is the individual presentation. Yeah, but we'll do that after the midterm exam. So 2 weeks after midterm exams, hopefully you'll have enough time and midterm exam is not interfering with your individual assignments, and then the voted 15 individual which voted to do the presentation will do their presentation and teach us about a case study or an emerging technology. Any other question from anyone else? Okay, if there are no questions, I will see you next week then.
Sir, I do have a question, please.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so for example, if my topic, if the company that I chose for the business plan assignment, if I was the one that was chosen by the class and I ask to not present, will there be any negative, points or
no negative at all. You just not get the 10% bonus point.
Oh, all right. So may I ask to cancel the presentation, please? Because I think it's a little bit overwhelming with my schedule.
It's like I said, it's not an issue. As long as you choose not to present, then it's not an issue. You just hand in your individual assignment at the end of the semester. As long as it's on time and so on, you'll be treated like all the other people in the class. It's only the people who were chosen by the class and choose to present, they can have a possibility of an additional 10%. Yeah.
All right, thank you, sir.
Any other question for anyone else? Don't worry if you don't do the presentation and so on. Every year, there always one or two people choose not to do the presentation. So that's why I tend to allow the class to vote for more than 10 individuals. Yeah, so I usually plan in one or two people chose not to present. Anyone else? Okay, so if there's no more question, I will see you next week. Good luck, keep yourself healthy, and keep social distancing and so on. Bye-bye, everyone.